Hey, do you mind clicking on the link I sent out in the email to make sure it's actually broadcasting? Yeah, it should be at the very bottom. The most recent email in that thread.
Over there.
No, it was a part of that thread.
Oh.
It was the most recent email.
What was that for some reason? The first one right here.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. If you would open that and see if it, you should be able to see my screen.
Yeah.
Yay!
It is. Excellent. Yeah.
So I don't recognize you. I'm Zach.
John,
How you doing?
good.
Good.
I saw your presentation at the school a couple weeks ago.
Oh, Greenville Tech. Yes.
That was cool.
Yeah, that was interesting. Didn't go exactly the way I'd planned, but I have no problem improving. Yeah, when Bo opened up the invitation to non-Greenville Tech people, he was so surprised that there was more Linux, LUG people than there was actual students.
Yeah. That's cool.
So do you do IT professionally?
I am a software engineer.
Okay. I am not a programmer, and so this is going to be almost exclusively sysadmin networking.
That's cool stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah,
I mean,
I don't think I know I have never used BGP.
yeah, BGP is basically, if you're outside of the ISP world, you may have heard of, but you've never ever used.
So I guess we're back in that situation where we were a long time ago of being able to get your own IP address space.
Technically, you can get your own address space. In reality, you'll probably never ever get it announced onto the public internet. And I'm going to explain why even if you have your address space, that doesn't matter.
Are you the one that said you'd start the Google Hangout when it started?
Yep.
Okay, I'll take your Hangout link and also post it to the UCLUG Google Plus page. So there.
Yeah,
That slide.
I
Oh, is
sent,
it?
I
Cool.
sent it out to the email, the mailing list.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I checked the thread. It hadn't posted yet. Hold on a second.
So that link that's on the.
Yes, that is the one I posted. And it's not going to be any video. It's just going to be
Right.
my screen. So I'll make sure not to open up my bank account or the porn. That looks like a new tablet, man. Nexus 7?
No, it's just the video. That's why I was.
So are you on a node at
I actually still work there. I work part-time at Global Vision, and that's what I'm SSH Gen 2 right now. So I'm actually going to show adding and removing a network from the public internet. And I'll show watching it drop from the public routing table, and then re-adding it to the public routing table and showing the differences in the trace routes and things like that.
no jokes?
Well, if I do a typo wrong on here, this is a production router that I will bring down Global Vision and have a very a large number of unhappy residential users that now can no longer get out to.
And the fun part is just simulating that.
Yeah.
Like a real life example.
Exactly.
Who needs a lab?
Here's all the support calls.
Well, what was funny is the phones are hosted in Office, so if the internet connection is down, it goes straight to a voicemail that is set up with our upstream, our VoIP provider, and then that gets forwarded out to all of our personal email addresses, which are off network. So that's how we handle, a complete system down. We only ever had that once, and that was because of typo, my typo. And unfortunately, I couldn't fix it remotely because I lost access. But that's since been changed. We got a cheapo DSL connection that I can use to backdoor in if the primary connection's down.
How long have you been at Global Vision?
2 years. Actually, 2 years. I went full-time in August of last year, and then I went part-time when I took the Clemson position in October. I was there about a year full-time, but 2 years total.
You guys advertise in the IPv6 space currently?
Not currently. We had a little hiccup with Aaron, and
It's not a good people to have a hiccup with.
well, what had happened is about 4 years ago, the company went through bankruptcy and was bought.
Right.
And no one ever notified Aaron that the company was sold. So Aaron just saw the Dave and Buster, was it DB, Dan and Buster Records, where the company was sold, and so.
It's on Brown Street.
Yes. And we were about 2 weeks away from losing our entire address space. Fortunately, I had asked for IPv6, and that got, oh, yeah, we found this hiccup. And so because I was asking for the IPv6,
Yeah.
they found a little hiccup with the whole company being sold part. So they had, it took them about 8 months to get that all sorted out. And then we turned around and we're asking for IPv6 right now. We got a /19 that we had since 1998.
That's awesome.
That was back then we seriously gave /24s away with every T1 connection.
Yeah. How big of an IPv6 allocation? Or you don't have one right now?
We don't have one now. The smallest allocation for an ISP, I believe, is a /32 or /36. So we're going to have bootloads of addresses. The plan is to
17 octillion, I believe.
yeah. The plan is to give a /56 to all residential users and a /48 to all business. If the business needs more, then we'll go even bigger allocations.
Yeah.
Howdy again. Hey, how are you doing? Keep running into you.
How's Clemson?
It's been good. Good.
So did you ever get into Android at all?
All right, so it's 6:30, so I'll go ahead and get started. I hope the stream is still working and everyone can hear me. Let me do an intro. I'm Zach Underwood. I work full-time with Clemson University in their Medicaid services support division, but I also work part-time, and I used to work full-time with an ISP here in Greenville called Global Vision. Global Vision has been around since 1996. Started up as dial-up and then transitioned to DSL. Started doing wireless connections using wireless A, starting, I believe it was 2002, as a T1 replacement. So at the time, T1s cost about $1,500 a month. We would come in, set up a wireless point-to-point coming off of one of the buildings downtown and sell that for $1,000 a month and give 1.5 megs. And we made great money doing that. The T1 business dried up. And so, but we still kept doing the wireless, just upping the speed, upping the reliability, and continue to upgrade the technology as it got better. But as every true ISP needs, they need their own address block. In this case, Global Vision has a /19, which is a little over 8,000 public IPs on version 4. And also we have what's known as a AS number, Autonomous System Number. Autonomous System Number is what we identify our organization to the public internet as. The public internet does not care about the company name. They care about the AS number. The IP addresses are associated with the AS. You have to have permission to announce addresses. That permission normally comes via a letter on official company head that links back to the ARIN documentation that says that we own those IPs. By the way, ARIN is the North American Register of Internet Addresses and Resources. So all IP addresses in North America come from ARIN. What BGP is, it's Border Gateway Protocol. It is how ISPs speak to each other, how Global Vision routers speak to other ISPs routers and exchange route tables. When I update a address, so say I want to start announcing a new block. So when I want to tell the public internet about an address block, it's called an announcement. So I announce a address block to the public internet, and then the BGP protocol takes that from my router and sends it up to my upstream routers, and then it starts forking off from there and eventually hits every router on the public internet in less than 2 minutes, which is pretty incredible when you think about how many routers there are on the public internet, and just how far distance-wise and time-wise to get to the other side of the world. I believe it's somewhere about 300 milliseconds from here to Tokyo. They are getting better with that. It's dropping now, but I believe it's still at about 300 milliseconds round trip. In the BGP world, to try to keep routing tables small as possible, the smallest advertisement size that you can do with BGP is a /24 of IPv4. That is 254 IP addresses. And you can do all the way up to, I believe, a /8, which is very few people actually announce a /8. There's like maybe 4 or 5 organizations worldwide that have an entire /8 that they announce. AT&T and Level 3 are great examples of that. The reason this BGP talk came about is harpers back to the IPv6 discussion and why basically someone wanted to go to ARIN, get their own IPv6 allotment, and then start using that as their internet connection. There's a lot of advantages with that. First off, if you change ISPs, your IPs stay the same because you own them. The problem lies with the logistics and dealing with the so-called upstream ISPs, which is who you buy your internet connection from. First off, it is entirely up to their whim whether they want to do BGP with you, and BGP is required if you announce your own addresses. The next is you need an AS number. With no AS number, you cannot speak BGP. It's technically impossible. That AS number does have a cost associated with it. I believe it is $500 a year through ARIN to have that AS number. On top of that, there is a fee, I think they call it a management fee for the address block, and for the smallest allotment of IPv6, I believe it is about $1,500 a year. So you'd be looking at minimum about $2 grand a year to ARIN just to have your own IPs. The next is actually getting connected. So one way is to give that address block to your ISP and allow the ISP to announce that block and simply do static routing back to your router that sits on premise with you. The next is to acquire a BGP capable router. And in the past, these BGP capable routers have been very expensive. If you went the traditional hardware route, you'd be looking at a Cisco or Juniper, minimum about $1 grand. There have routers I actually have. They are the Ubiquiti Edge router. It's a $100 MSRP, and it will do BGP. It will do a full internet table. I'll get to exactly what a full internet table is later on a $100 router. So you have to get this BGP capable router, install it in your house, configure it. Next, you need an ISP connection that is willing to speak BGP with you. You will not get that on a home connection. So next, you're looking at a fiber connection, and a fiber-based connection for most ISPs is a minimum of $500 a month, no matter what speed. The speed could be 5 megs, 5 by 5, and it's $500 a month. Because they have to provision equipment. There is fiber that's taken up to your premise. All that costs money. So it can be very expensive to announce your own address blocks. We have no preference. If you have a layer 2 connection from Global Vision, we'll be happy to do BGP with you. That could be on a $50 wireless connection, which there is no other ISP in this geographical area that can do that ability. What a full internet table is. Oh, by the way, anyone has questions, please speak up so it's not turned into a lecture. What a full internet table is basically a list of every address route possible on the public internet. And here on the screen, actually, I am connected to one of Global Vision's core routers, which is running BGP with the public internet. And I'm just going to show you what the full internet looks like when, from the perspective of this router. If you go to Immedion's routers, they're going to look different because they have different internet connections than we do. So as you can see, here is every address block possible that is currently announced on the public internet. The way networking works is it will choose the most specific route. So let's see. If you have 2 routes to the same network, one's a /23, the other is a /24. By default, the route will always go on the /24. BGP's metric for determining what is the best route is not latency, bandwidth, it's by organization, by AS number. The more ASs it is away, the less likely it is going to take that route to the ISP. Here I'm actually going to show you how it actually does the BGP selection. It does take a while to run this command. It is the full internet table, which you see a small portion of here on the screen. The full internet table is a little over 500,000 routes, which on average takes 1K of memory per route. A lot of y'all might have heard the little hiccup Cisco routers had a few months ago with their 6500 Catalyst switches or routers. By the way, that's what these folks use, and they did have downtime because of this event. What had happened is Verizon, who has a large address block, they normally announce it using a few routes. Let's call it a /12. So they take the /12. They had a small hiccup where that /12 became 20,000 /24s. And what had happened is it pushed it over the limit of these Cisco routers. These Cisco routers had only so much memory that they could store routes in. And what had happened is when Verizon made this mistake, the routers behind me and other organizations, what had happened is their route tables had locked up and filled up. And instead of doing hardware-based routing or ASIC routing, they went to software-based routing and fell over. I believe there were about 45 minutes of downtime here. And there, this affected Netflix was offline. Many data centers were offline because of this mistake. What had happened, and then after Verizon realized it was a mistake, they fixed their mistake, and then the public routes went below the 512,000 limit. At which point they were Immedion applied a patch to the box, which corrected the issue. The way that happened was actually a good thing because it flooded and then came back down. every day, the number of public routes slowly increases. So we will hit a point again where we cross that 512 mark, and ISPs who are not due diligent will fall over again. This time they won't be coming back. So they would have to fix their equipment, and the patch could take, could take a few hours to apply after the technicians figured out what it was. So this is actually the public routing table. Why don't we take a look at this particular route? I have no idea where this really goes, but I'm just showing this particular route. This is, so if you send an IP address or send a ping packet or traffic to an IP that falls within this range. So let's just say you sent it to 1001. What the router would do is it would look at which one has less ASs in the path. It's called the AS path. It would be this top one. And so then it would go out this particular router. In this case, that is Spirit. And the bottom one is Earthlink. So if Spirit was to go down, their routes would disappear away from my router. And now Earthlink, because it's the only one, it will still go out. So doing BGP does give you redundancy because it's called multi-honing. You can hone to different ISPs upstream. So if you lose one of your primaries, it will automatically fail over to a secondary. So this is the public routing table. Right here. And it eventually does come to an end, but it is quite long and I'm not going to go through that. One thing I wanted to show is what happens when you remove a announcement, a prefix from the public internet. I'm going to do trace route, then I'm going to re-add it and then show the trace route difference. So first I'm going to do the trace route as it stands today. And because this is Windows, trace route takes forever. So while that is running, I'm going to show you a little bit of the command. This is the Ubiquity router. It is based off of Viata, which is a Debian-based router. The Ubiquity hardware routers themselves are a MIPS-based processor. The one I have one that I am consoled into has 2 gigs of RAM. The ones on the table have 512, which is, these routers are fine for a single internet connection. They are not okay for doing 2 public tables through BGP. So just to elaborate a little bit on what this trace route does, as you can see, it is bouncing through Immedion. It left here in Greenville and it jumped on to level 3 where it went to Washington, Washington, DC, bounced around a couple times, and then got onto Spirit's network down here on 7. It bounced around in Spirit's network a little while until it hit my router, which is number 10. And on my router, because this network is not in use, I have it black holed. Black hole is basically sending all traffic that is destined for that network or from that network to dev null, basically making all traffic disappear. So that is why we get the error as in it is not found. There is also a cool tool that Hurricane Electric produces called a looking glass, which basically elaborates the routes as Hurricane Electric sees them. And I'm just going to do off of one of their routers what this particular network looks like when on their network, when it loads. Oh. All right, so as you can see, Hurricane Electric has 3 different routes to this network. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to remove it from the public routing table. Unlike Cisco routers, Viata only has 2 modes. It's got system mode and it's got configuration mode. None of this config T, config interface BS. And this entire thing is tab completion capable. So I'm just going to delete this route. Let's see. All right, so essentially what that is my autonomous system number is 11672. As you can see, it is there at the bottom. And I'm going to remove the 216.105.146 network from the public internet. And I'll do it quick. And I'm going to go back. Unfortunately, Hurricane Electric does cache the records. So I'm just going to choose a different router to force it to show me a uncached version. Okay, maybe not. Okay, so BGP takes a little longer than instant. Let's see. All right, as you can see, it is starting to disappear. It is continuing to propagate through their network. All right, as you can see, it is now fully gone from Hurricane Electric's network. And within a few more seconds, it will be gone away from the entire public internet. I'm going to rerun this trace route and to show you the difference. What happens is you have a bunch of routers that have default gateways that keep passing unknown traffic up to a following router. Eventually, when you hit the edge of someone's network, they will have a router that will have no default gateway. And if it does not have a route to that network, it will drop the traffic. And as we do a comparison between these trace routes, that traffic never left Immedion's network. It went to their edge router over there, and the edge router goes, I have no route to this network. I'm dropping the traffic and sending back a reply to the client, destination host unreachable. So I just removed that route from the public internet. And let me add it back. Yes, it is a production router. The network itself is not production. The 146 network is an unused network that we black hole at our router.
No wonder we're running out of IPs.
We were given these IPs in 1998, and we have not asked for any more. But according to Aaron, we are 100% used. Exactly. So if I should be able to rerun this trace route, and it gets past Immedion's network.
Now, why didn't Immedion's network go to its ISP or it upstream, or is their router BGP capable?
Yes.
That's the reason it stopped there.
Immedion's routers are BGP capable. When two ISPs speak to each other, they agree not to send each other default gateways, because when ISPs share default gateways with each other, that can propagate bad traffic.
Right.
So you find this in botnets with the source being spoofed. So ISPs have collectively for years agreed not to exchange BGP or not exchange default gateways. So once it hits Immedion's perimeter router, the router goes, I have no other path for this because it has no default gateway. So because the route was not in that router, Immedion's router just discarded the traffic. And there is a technology that ISPs are slowly starting to implement called source verification. Basically, it verifies the traffic is a legitimate traffic coming from its network, that the source really comes from its network, and before it sends the traffic on. If you don't do this, your network could be used as a botnet, because what hackers will do is they will send a traffic to a legitimate server, like let's say DNS. This is DNS amplification attack. They send back a destination, the DNS server, a source, a victim IP. Then that traffic will, without source verification, the traffic would then go out to the DNS server. The DNS server thinks it's doing the right thing and sends this huge packet back to the victim's IP. What source verification does is when it hits that perimeter router, if that router does not have a route back to that source, it drops the traffic as invalid. So that right there would dramatically cut down on botnet attacks.
If it was more widely implemented,
If it is implemented,
how many ISPs have implemented that?
there's no real numbers, but given the prevalence of botnets, not enough.
Would you call that?
DNS amplification attack. Same thing can happen with SNMP or NTP. What makes those protocols so special and so ripe for a DDoS attack is because they're UDP. UDP does not require validation of the source address like TCP does. TCP has a three-way handshake which verifies the IP addresses on both ends. UDP doesn't. It doesn't verify the source or the destination IP before firing off a packet in that direction. For a protocol like DNS, which is hypersensitive to latency, and same thing with VoIP, UDP is the best choice for those, but they also have downsides. So if more ISPs implement source verification, the likelihood of DDoS attacks would go down. Questions before I go through a demo of setting up BGP? All right. All right, so I have two routers here. Both of these are Ubiquiti Edge routers. They MSRP, like I said, for $100. I have this router right here, one of the routers set up as ISP2. The other is ISP1. I know it's kind of hard for everyone here to see, but the host names are on the bottom. Then from Ethernet 0, I have them connected. And let me do a ping real quick to show that they are talking to each other. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to set up BGP on ISP1 and then show you how simple it really is. This is BGP 101. I could get into hours and hours of advanced configurations. This is just the minimum amount you need to speak BGP to another router. So I'm going to go into configuration mode, and this is a protocol, so it's going to be in the protocol section. BGP. Next is going to be my local AS number. For this demonstration, I'm just going to use 1 and 2 as the AS numbers. In reality, you'll have to use what is given to you by Aaron if you're in North America. Let's see, I'm going to set some parameters, which if are not present, makes the whole thing a lot more difficult. The next is I'm going to set up the neighbor who I want to speak with. And just going to be the IP address on this interface, or the IP address that I pinged earlier. And now I need to specify the remote AS number. In this case, it's going to be 2. All right, now I need to set the network that I want to announce. Oops. And that's it. That's all the commands that are required. So it's now restarting the BGP daemon. Let me do a save. And I'm going to do a show IP route. And as we can see, it has received the top, it has received this route right here, the one that starts with a B. It's received this route 9 seconds ago from the other router using the BGP protocol. So it's 3 commands. Yeah, 3 commands to set up BGP on a Ubiquity router. Don't ask me what it is on a Cisco. I've never done it. Yeah. And one thing that's not present in this simple configuration is prefix lists. So what prefix lists are is basically it controls what ISP sees what. So one example is my upstream ISPs set up a filter list that only permits me to announce the IPs that belong to me. Without this filter, I could set up and I could say I own 8.8.8.8, and with no filters, I could set that up on my router, and now I start receiving traffic that was supposed to be destined for Google's DNS server. So it is the upstream's ISP's responsibility and mandate that they verify the ownership of the addresses that their downstream ISPs announce to them and that they re-announce to the public internet. There's been several cases in the past where ISPs have not done this filtering. It's called prefix hijacking. Iran did it, and it brought down all of YouTube. Pakistan did it, also brought down all of YouTube. In both those cases, they were trying to do some censorship inside their country, but because the ISPs that connect Pakistan to the rest of the internet did not apply filters correctly, it allows Pakistan's configurations to leak out onto the internet, causing a whole big of problems. Filter lists can also be used to announce certain address blocks to certain ISPs. So we have essentially 2 classes of services. We got our business customers and our residential customers. We have 2 internet connections. We have Spirit and Earthlink. Earthlink's routes are crap, but they are cheap. So we put all of our residential users on that network. So all of our residential users fit within 2 networks that we announce only to Earthlink. And then all of our business users are announced to Spirit. But there is a mechanism set up so that if, such as the Earthlink internet connection fails, all the residential users will now be announced over the other connection with less than 30 seconds of downtime. Most users wouldn't know it. If they're watching a video, it would just simply catch up a little on the buffer. Any questions about BGP before I go to net neutrality? Let's see. So a little bit about net neutrality. There's been a lot of FUD, fear, uncertainty, and doubt spread out about net neutrality as by a lot of pundits that say that without net neutrality, the internet as we know will die. I am here to say that is not true. I do not proclaim to be unbiased. I am biased. I work for an ISP. So I'm going to show from the ISP's point of view why particularly Title II regulations is a bad thing, and then what is the best possible way to end the whole net neutrality debate while still getting what the supporters of net neutrality want, but without actually adding more regulation, particularly from the government. So
The best way to end net neutrality is to don't do those filters and let Pakistan have all the traffic.
not necessarily, but I'll get to that.
Well, that's not fair. You ought to let Pakistan do whatever it wants.
So I'm going to be at least the downsides of net neutrality. I'm going to be specifically focusing on Title II regulations, which is the regulations that Obama came out and strongly suggested the FCC implement. I think that was about 3 or 4 weeks ago. Basically, Title II is a set of regulations. It's called Title II of the 1936 Telecommunications Act. So we're talking about implementing rules that were written in 1936, where FM radio did not exist. AM radio was the only thing. TV, I don't think TV was around then. We had rotary phones with operators on the other side. Is under Title II regulation, ISPs would become utilities like Bell South, like Duke, like Piedmont Natural Gas, like Greenville Water, like every other utility that provides service to your house. However, there's some nasty bits associated with Title II. The first one is USF fund. Right now, if you look at your cell phone bill, you'll see about a 16% tax called USF, Universal Service Fund. What it was originally designed was it was a subsidy taken to tax people who have phone service, landline phone service, and give that money to telephone companies as a subsidy to try to incentivize them to provide connections to rural users who at the time had no telephone access. So if Title II was put onto internet connections, everyone's bill would almost immediately go up 16.1%, almost immediately. And there's nothing we could do about it. For most people, that would mean about an $8 to $16 increase on their monthly bill just for internet access. Next is an unsightly thing that most of the proponents of Title II regulation don't know about. This is Section 101B of Title II regulation of the Telecommunications Act of 1936. This explicitly gives, in this case, telephone companies and telegraph operators, that's what this rule was written for, but if it is applied to internet companies, it will also apply to internet companies. It basically sets up different classes of service. Here are a few of them: day, night, repeat, unrepeat, letter, commercial use, press, and government, and any other the commission, aka the FCC, deems appropriate. So this would allow ISPs to set up the so-called fast lane and slow lane. So this would not achieve anything to the end goal that all of the net neutrality proponents want to do if the entire Title II regulation was applied to ISPs. There was some talk, I think it was Obama who mentioned, about selective enforcement of Title II regulations. The problem with selective enforcement is technically the laws apply, but the FCC would not enforce it. The problem with that is as presidential administrations change and as the administration of the FCC changes, so can the rules. So so now you turn it into a highly politicized thing when it shouldn't be. This should not be a political event. The next is the damage provisions. of section 206 and 207. What that essentially is a user of the service can file a formal complaint with the FCC alleging damages by the ISP, and it is now the ISP's burden to prove they were not causing the problem. It could be Wi-Fi congestion on the local user's network. It could be that they had a son who was downloading video games on BitTorrent, using up all the traffic, making the connection slow. But now the ISP and the FCC have to go back and forth for about 2 years, spending thousands of dollars in attorney's fees just to disprove the event. And we basically then, in order to disprove it was us, we then have to go and investigate the user's network and get evidence that it was the son downloading games on BitTorrent that caused the problem. This would create a huge hurdle for ISPs, particularly in attorney's fees. As a small ISP, we have 9 people who work in the office. We cannot afford to keep a lawyer on retainer. They charge $500 an hour. We cannot afford that. The next is disconnection of service. Under Title II, if we want to disconnect someone's service, we have to register that with the FCC and get their blessing on that. Then we have to send a series of registered letters to the user, to the subscriber, telling them, informing them that their service is going to be disconnected for whatever reason. Working in the ISP world, people don't pay bills. And the most effective way to get people to pay their bills is turning off their service. So we're actually moving to a system which automates that. So if you do not pay your bill, after 15 days, your service gets disconnected, and you get redirected to a Pay Me Now page. You pay for your service, and your service gets reactivated, and you get access to the normal internet. Under Title II, we would have to scrap that entire system and now hire someone to send out all these letters, keep track of whoever's not paying, where now we can do it with an automated system. The next thing is we also, with Title II, it has a huge regulatory overhead. The government has the potential oversight of what type of equipment you use, what type of configuration you use, where you can put equipment. There's also a must-serve clause in Title II. Basically, that if you say you cover a particular area, you must serve every resident, whether they're technically possible to receive service or not. Our particular service is wireless, which is interrupted by trees. So someone can have a giant oak tree in their front yard that sits between our tower and that customer. Under Title II, we could potentially be required to provide service to that customer, even though it is going to be a very poor signal, resulting in a poor service quality for the customer. Questions on why Title II is not the best thing?
So by Title II, you're referring to the old one or the recommendation from the White House towards the FCC?
I am talking about the full Title II as written in law, not the cherry-picked version of selective enforcement.
Yeah, there's so many issues and details. Pretty huge subject.
Yes, it is.
I mean, the idea of what we have now and the way some ISPs control the market for the server side access to the internet, for example, is
What do you mean access to the server side?
well, let's say I've got a budget of like $20 or $40 a month to put a server on the internet full time.
That is possible. You could do. There are colo providers that are the price competitors that would do it probably for $40 a month. But that cost of putting a server on the public internet is more than just the internet cost itself. it's power, it's
You know,
the server, it's
I'm looking
cooling.
at this from the perspective of net neutrality, and by $20 or $40, I'm referring to this end of the market, which is your, you know, garage budget end of the market for the server side. So, and how that,
Are you talking about for a home user trying to host a server from their home connection?
well, the angle I'm taking is, barriers to entry, economic barriers to entry in the startup world, an economic perspective. So I'm really thinking about startups, very small startups, like, you know, someone who has a budget of $20 a month for a server.
Getting
And where I'm going with that, let me finish the thought.
okay.
The whole point of, this is like a flashlight in a warehouse, where I'm saying, like, well, from this perspective, if we look at net neutrality and some of the issues in the state of the art, it's kind of an ugly market.
Okay,
And
so
if you compare the market the way it is now to the market the way for the server side, to the market the way it was in the mid-90s, the progression of the last decade or two is, you know, towards, it's harder, increasingly more difficult to get a server on the network.
I disagree with you. I think it's easier today than it has ever been in history. Because
It's easier in the sense
And
that you have
cheaper.
a lot of colos, and you can, you know, in 5 minutes, you can use your credit card and go get a server. But so this is a technical issue, which is really fun and interesting. But this thing isn't about technology as much as it's about the law and the market, the state of the market.
okay, so why don't we separate issues? One on the server side, and then there's the others is the access, the eyeball network side. So on the server side, we're at the cheapest price ever for bandwidth, for colo, for hosting in general. You can go to Amazon and get a free virtual machine for a year, free, no cost. Now, performance-wise, it is going to be low. If you want to upgrade that, they have several options that they.
Well, Amazon used to be about $60 a month.
No, they're way down. They got
AWS?
AWS has a free tier for 1 year. You
How
can
is this relevant to that?
I'm addressing your server, the cost for the servers side.
I'm not talking, this is, net neutrality is a law and markets issue.
Okay, so in the server hosting market, server hosting is a commodity now. There is lots of competition. You can buy bandwidth for 50 cents a megabyte for a 10 gig connection. Hurricane Electric in Atlanta sells a 10 gig internet connection in 56 Marietta for less than $1,000 a month. They have specials where you can get a 10 gig internet connection for less than $1,000 a month, which is unheard of. You cannot, in Greenville, it's not that cheap because we don't have 56 Marietta. 56 Marietta is the internet exchange in Atlanta. It is also the biggest internet exchange in the Southeast. The next nearest one is in Ashburn, and then I believe after Ashburn it goes up to New York,
Where's that?
Virginia.
I have another way of framing this that might be more interesting. What is your take on the evolution in the structure of internet service? Is it moving in the direction of monopoly control of internet service?
Yes and no. If you just look at the traditional phone companies and cable companies, yes, it is moving more in a monopolistic way. But because of the advancements in wireless technology, like what my company does, it has dramatically reduced the barrier of entry. I could build a wireless network that would cover most of the commercial areas in Greenville for less than $500,000. You could not do that in a wired network.
$500,000 is not interesting. What I think is interesting is for one of us to be able to do something, whatever it is, whether we're talking about a server-side business or a mesh business or whatever it is. So that's why I'm talking about a budget of, or a lot of us make good money, so that's not actually the ideal example. Actually, the ideal example is something like a high school or someone in college.
And again, I come back to Amazon's free tier for 1 year, no cost, no credit card needed.
But this is not an argument. This does not speak to the legal and the legal.
Okay, I think you're going off topic.
Well, we're on net neutrality.
Net neutrality, as it's framed in the media, is eyeball networks versus content networks. Content networks being Netflix, YouTube, Google.
These are examples, technical examples of that illuminate different issues, like the way Netflix illuminates the issue of content traveling over ISP networks.
Yes.
Fast lanes and slow lanes. So fast lanes and slow lanes are down in the FCC regulation of ISPs.
As net neutrality as proposed today would not address the fast lane, slow lane issues. What will do it is a few topics I got here. These are a way to increase competition or change the incentive in the ISP market. First is called open trench laws. Basically what that is when a entity builds a new road, resurfaces a road, water company puts in a new pipe, that before they bury it, they allow ISPs in the area to come put in empty conduit while they have the trench open. So thereby driving the cost to put in physical infrastructure way down. Once the water company has buried it, buried the empty conduit and finished up, the ISP then can insert fiber into that conduit and connect multiple locations pretty inexpensively. So that's open trench laws. What that will do, open trench laws will reduce the barrier to entry for a ISP to particularly get into the fiber market, which seems like the holy grail for everyone is they want fiber internet. The next is increasing competition. Open trench laws would increase competition because they decrease the barrier to entry. Right now, you have a company like Windstream. Right, Windstream today mostly buys AT&T fiber. With open trench laws, Windstream would have the ability to start putting in their own fiber for a more realistic cost than what they would have to pay otherwise. The next is a particularly hot topic and would be open for a lot of debate is usage-based billing. This changes the incentive of ISPs. Cell phone companies have done a great job at training their users to be aware of their data usage when they're on their cell phone. They have a data cap with a cost if you go over said data cap. What usage-based billing would do is it changes the incentive from I want you as the user to use as little bandwidth as possible because that costs us money. So if you have a grandmother who uses 1 gig a month and pays $50 a month, and then you have a house full of kids that uses 500 gigabytes and pays $50 a month, we don't want that 500 gigabyte user because they give us the same amount of money, but that user costs a whole lot more. So when you do usage-based billing and there's a cost associated with every gigabyte, whether that could be just 2 cents associated with every gigabyte, or 50 cents or whatever that number is, it changes the incentive such that the ISP is now incented to give you the fastest possible connection so that you can use the most amount of data possible. Yes, use that 4K Netflix, download the 10 gig Linux distro that Ubuntu seemed to go into. So it dramatically changes the incentive. Once you change that incentive, the whole net neutrality debate on fast lane, slow lane, priority traffic goes away because when you have usage-based billing, I actually want you to use Netflix because you're going to rank up a big bill. Usage-based billing is in every utility with the exception of internet. You pay by the cubic foot in gas. You pay by the gallon in water. You pay by the kilowatt in electricity. Why shouldn't you pay by the gigabyte in internet? Yes.
Because the internet is not a fixed resource, it's a scarce resource, in the same sense as a natural resource. The digital resource, it can be, but let me back up to go where I wanted to go earlier. I propose that you're wearing two hats. The one hat you're wearing is the one you're born with. It's what do I want as an individual. And then the other hat you're wearing is the one you have now as an adult male that says what do I want as a businessman. The interesting thing is that there's a well-known economic theory of utility, as it happens, that solves this dilemma that you have. Utility points to the public good. What is in the public good? So in this case, we could say that if we share this resource, and the way the internet is structured is naturally, technically disposed towards sharing, right? You don't have a copper pair from New York to LA for AT&T. We share many links. And the sharing model promotes a distributed public good so that what we want each of us wearing the hat we were born with as individuals is what we really want is, if possible, is a fixed cost for
Look at it
reasonable amount of bandwidth.
Look at it from the incentives point of view. If I have a tower that is currently using 100 megs of bandwidth back to the backbone and core of the network, that link between the tower and the core, say it is only 100 megs, I don't have a whole lot of incentive to upgrade that, because if I upgrade that, my users are going to use more bandwidth, costing me more money. I now have to buy more bandwidth at my core.
Competition. What we really need is competition.
Competition does solve some of it.
I don't really want to get into a knife fight. All I want to do is illustrate it as gentle
Hold on,
as
hold on, hold on.
possible that the
Let me
three
finish.
items on your really need list have a conflict.
Let me finish my example about the tower upgrade. So under today's billing, I have little incentive to upgrade that backhaul for that tower, because if I upgrade that, I now have to upgrade several other things down the chain to keep capacity available. If I change it to usage-based billing, I will happily upgrade that link, because now my users can use more bandwidth and I can now charge them more.
Yeah,
What
This
about,
is
what
true.
about throttle?
I don't throttle, because I actually want you to, I want you to use Netflix 4K, because Netflix 4K uses a lot more data than Netflix standard def. So I would actively encourage my users to, yes, look at the beauty that 4K offers. Oh, by the way, it does cost more. But it's the same thing like when you go buy an oven. You could buy a massive oven, and then you fire that sucker up, and you're gonna see your electric bill come later that month. Go, wow, that oven's expensive.
See,
Because electricity has an associated cost per unit, people now are, well, that oven right there will do just fine. I don't need this super big oven. The sales guy is going to try to sell you that big oven. Duke will happily install that and provide service for that big oven, because the more you use, the more they make.
Your analogy, you got so much capability, so much bandwidth
Yep.
now, and you got X amount of users on that bandwidth.
Mhm.
And what you're saying to me is when you increase capability, you want your existing customers to keep hammering you. That's like saying I've got 3 customers, and I'll subcontract myself out to these 3 customers. But I'm going to divorce my wife. Now I've got more hours to pick up a 4th customer. But you're saying, no, don't pick up a fourth customer, let the three use more of my time at the same amount of money. See, I'm a limited resource. That bandwidth is a limited resource. So you ought to, I mean, it would be reasonable to me.
It's not limited in the such that, like time is limited. It's a capital hardware expense can only support so much bandwidth.
Well,
And to go up to another tier, you've got to upgrade that hardware. And that upgrade, that hardware could be $100,000.
well, why don't you bring, I mean, to me, it's reasonable. You say, we have, our internet provider is TW, I think it's level 3 now, they bought it out or something.
Yeah, it's level 3 now.
Ours is 20 megabit a month.
You're probably paying over $1,000 a month.
It's 700, 20 megabit. But that's the deal. I understand that's what I'm going to get. Now, they have the, like, we're on fiber, they have the capability of letting me go 100 or whatever.
You're buying DIA. It's called Dedicated Internet Access. And that's the reason that 20 meg connection is $700 a month. Charter, you get a 100 meg connection, 100 meg, for I think $150 a month. But it's a shared resource. They oversubscribe. They purposely oversubscribe. So Charter will buy, let's say they buy 100 megs. They will then sell, they could sell 50 people 50 megs. That's way more than they actually have because they're counting on all those users not maxing out their connections. But if we change it to usage-based, they will then make as much bandwidth available to the end user as possible because they want their end users to use as much as possible.
But I still don't understand why you don't limit your existing customers and say, we can afford to upgrade, bring on more customers, and nobody exhausts us.
The way we do right now is we do run at about 80% capacity consistently. As we add more customers and we see that tick go above 80%, we will upgrade at that point. But if we're happy with the customers that we have, we're okay if we only get 1 or 2 a month or something like that. Basically just stay stagnant with the number of customers. Then we have no incentive to upgrade our backhaul because we're not bringing in any additional money. But if we change it to usage-based billing, we would happily upgrade that because now it allows our customers to use as much as they want. And we also cap our customers at a fixed amount. We would suddenly turn all of our customers uncapped, and it would use the maximum that technology can deliver to their home. Right now, most of we got 3, 5, and 10 meg plans. Most of our residential users are in the 5x5 plan. If we left it uncapped, we could see users spiking to 50, 60 megs symmetric. So they could get 50, 60 megs up and down, and we'd be happy to provide all of that speed because every time they send a gigabyte up or down, tick, 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 it adds a little more money to their bill.
And everybody hates that. Everybody hates that.
Yes, people want consistent bills, and that's why we don't have usage-based billing.
It's the argument against is not that people want consistent bills. The argument against is that here's this technology that has the capital intensive fixed cost plus electricity, which actually isn't a fixed cost, but it's very close to a fixed cost.
Electricity is almost nothing, and when compared to the equipment.
All right, so here's this opportunity to provide, bandwidth at a fixed cost to the consumer. And net neutrality multiplies that across the macro economy and says the whole internet system can operate at a fixed cost to its consumers.
There's more than just the fixed.
You gotta finish the thought, otherwise you miss the whole public good end of it, which is the critical part. So what is on the other side of the balance sheet? What are you getting for this fixed cost? what we're getting is a communications network. And on this communications network is our news, our government, and our business.
Okay.
Which is why the public good argument is important with a capital I. Because you can see how, in the case of television, at least if you're my age or better, you can see how we've lost the visibility on television into what's going on in the world. You can't really see what's going on in the world by turning on your television. And if we go down a similar road of exploitation with the internet, we're going to have the same problem. Yeah, we can apply these really neat exploitation models, and yeah, it has a sense to it in a macroeconomic sense, microeconomic sense. That, you know, wouldn't it be cool if, you know, usage goes up on this wire and my billing goes up on this account? But by exploiting exploiting everything to the maximum degree, you lose the integrity of the thing. You lose the transparency of the thing. You lose the ability of a journalist to spend more time on a story at the end of the day.
I completely disagree with you. As far as
So that's why net neutrality is a big issue.
As far as the public good, I expect many internet connections. As a company, I don't give a rat's ass about the public good. What I care about,
That's why there's two sides to this.
I care about, is that profitable? We are a for-profit company. We're not a nonprofit. We
So
will
all
not.
I ask-
We will not install a connection just because it does public good. If it does public good
Of course.
and it's profitable, hey, bonus. But just because it
Which is
is,
why in the history of thought, we've divided these things into two subjects. Your side of the debate, the side of the debate you're representing is the microeconomic side of the debate. And the side of the debate that I'm representing is the macroeconomic side of the debate.
I think you're clouding. I think you're clouding this issue.
Net neutrality is all about, that's what this is about.
I'm focusing on the law and the technical and the money with net neutrality from the ISP's point of view.
But you don't find the debate that we're having interesting?
I think you're trying to steer it in a situation where I'm not very familiar with. I cannot comment correctly on it, so I'm going to pass. That is my polite way of saying I'm done. Any questions?
Okay, let's open up the floor for arguments.
So where Zach's coming from is with net neutrality, if it does the greater public good, we're all gonna have to pay for that greater public good.
Yes.
He has to pay.
Or we go out of business. If we are not profitable, we shut down. So it doesn't matter what good we're doing, someone's got to pay the bill. And under, at least under regulation, we got to pay attorneys to interface with the government officials, who are very expensive. So really, the only ones who really win are attorneys.
Who is for title? What'd you say, Title II?
It's
What politicians or parties are for that?
it's really not politicians or parties. I know more about the companies. Netflix would love to see Title II go through because they would be under none of these regulations.
They would force you to supply connectivity, and they would just
Oh,
piggyback.
What
on the
they
customer.
would have no negative. They only have upside. We as ISPs have almost no upside to it and almost all downside.
All right, so in the microeconomic sphere, giving you a break, we just scratch usage-based billing. No, I'm joking. I'm just teasing.
Well, I mean, if you got competition, you're free to do that.
Yes. Under competition, if Charter wants to do usage-based billing, well, there's my company who doesn't, or there's AT&T who doesn't. So if we have competition, one company could do usage-based billing, and your grandmother who uses 1 gig a month will have a base charge of $10 a month, and that's her entire internet bill, $10 a month.
All right.
Where someone
So
that,
usage-based
well, hold on,
billing-
hold on. Where someone like a family that uses a large amount of data may pay $200 a month for their internet connection, but they do that willingly.
Usage-based billing is a variable margin model. The model we have today is a fixed margin model. You have a fixed cost and your revenue and your profit is on top of a fixed cost.
Somewhat.
I'm getting a little bit sloppy with it. Just to say that, trying to compare A and B using terminology of fixed versus variable. So we know how to do either one, right? It's all very well known. Lots of businesses are out there making a profit on a fixed model, and lots of businesses are out there making a profit on a variable model. So it's not like an existential thing for the ISP. The ISP isn't going to evaporate if it doesn't get usage-based billing.
No, I'm not saying that. If Title II goes into effect
But what are you pointing at? What you're pointing at is this whole thing of
of regulation,
disconnect.
particularly of the regulatory burden, and we would have to hire attorneys on
Which is a
retainer,
disconnect.
which is a huge cost we could not bear, and it would be beneficial for the owner to close up shop tomorrow than to pay
Slow
the
down, put
attorneys.
brakes on. That's it, yes or no, please, help me. It's the disconnect, yes?
What disconnect?
Your discontinuation of service issue.
That is one aspect of Title II. That is, all of this is regulatory overhead.
Well,
Disconnection of service is just one item.
I'm regulated when I drive down the road with a speed limit. I mean, that's not,
But you don't need to hire an attorney to go.
that's what I'm asking. What are we hiring
For
attorneys
each and every
for?
second you're
Okay.
driving, you have to hire
We-
an attorney to file a
That's the-
driving.
that's-
Every time we would, as, right now, AT&T has an army of lawyers. Every time they turn up a phone line, they have to they gotta file paperwork and file that with the
This is
FCC.
discontinuation of service.
No, just to turn you up. And every 6 months, it's called Form 477. The phone companies must report all their customers to the
You and
FCC.
I would be on the same side if we could agree, well, we would be on the same side if we agreed that, discontinuation of service issues are regulatory overhead that is probably an undue burden for a small ISP like yours.
Yep.
On the other hand, I do not like the variable marginal revenue on that fixed cost. What did you call it?
Usage-based billing.
Usage-based bill.
Yeah.
That's wrong.
Let me ask you this. You're the middleman, you have an ISP.
Yep.
So does your ISP, does it want to give you usage-based billing? Or is it fixed, unlimited, or whatever they give you now?
We buy DIA just like you do. So we pay, we pay over $3,000 a month in upstream ISP costs. So in the ISP to ISP world, they will probably remain the same. There might be a small upstart class of ISPs that will start doing usage-based billing among ISPs. But if usage-based billing becomes popular, I see the level 3s, the Cogents, Hurricane Electrics, the backbone providers staying the same. It's the eyeball networks like myself, like Charter, that would start changing the billing.
Well, I mean, with cell phones, that's usage-based.
Yes, it is.
So, and we're used to that.
Yep.
And
They've done
competition,
a
lets me.
very good job at training you.
We mean,
They've done a very good job at training you
to
that,
shop.
they've done a very good job at training you that data has a cost
Oh, yeah.
associated with it on a mobile platform.
Right. So, we're used to paying usage-based billing, we get that then, but there's some fixed plans too out
Yep.
there in the cell phone. And we have freedom to go shop around,
Yep.
and the number portability law that's requires them to port my number from here to here. So at least I'm not tied or loosed in with a certain company.
Mhm.
I'm free to roam around. So is there you're just waiting for usage-based billing to become socially popular.
Yes.
It's not that there's a law preventing you from doing it.
No, there is no law that says that we must do one type of billing or not.
Right.
But right now it is socially unacceptable to do user-based billing.
Yes, it's just a matter of someone just doing the math and figuring out for a home user, it's unpopular because of what this gentleman said. They need to know what a standard cost is. It's comforting, they can budget, things like that.
And they also.
But it's not that hard to guesstimate what you've been using either.
For us, it's not hard for us to guesstimate how much data we use. You ask ask y'all's wives how much gigabytes that your household uses in a month.
Yeah.
She probably wouldn't even know what a gigabyte was. Maybe she would because she owns a cell phone and you trained her that can't go over this X amount.
You would have to send text,
Yes.
my phone sends text messages.
Yes,
how much
there
data.
there are billing platforms. One of them that is very popular in the ISP, the WISP world, is called PowerCode. What it does is it has the option for user-based billing. You can set up, as the administrator, I can set up alerts so that you as the resident would get an alert when you hit 50%, 90%, and 95%, and 100%. You'd get alerts via email going, you have crossed this limit. And after you go past 100%, then you could either have the option to slow you down like what T-Mobile does with their unlimited data plans, or you could start billing per gigabyte as overage like AT&T and Verizon do.
How does Charter work? Because I got Charter. Do you know?
Charter, actually, technically, if you read their terms and services, you got a 250 gigabyte data cap. They only enforce that if you become a problem on the network.
But they have something in writing.
Yes, they will enforce that if you become a problem.
Okay. So their attitude is, let's put it in writing.
Yeah.
But we don't have to really enforce it unless
And
someone's hammering us.
I'm a member of an organization called WISPA. It's Wireless ISPs Association of America, I think. And there was a gentleman who owns a wireless ISP in Texas. And one of his users called in and complaining that their son could not do their homework that required watching a YouTube video. And this particular person had a 20 meg package. The tech support was able to log in to the billing platform and see that the usage was spiked at 20 megs constant all day long. After some talking to the lady, they found out she had 5 TVs hooked up to Netflix running ULUG. You know, the fire log? So she did not understand that running 5 TVs with a video on loop of a fireplace was causing the issues with her son not being able to watch YouTube. And she understands that there is no cost to doing that. Where if we did usage-based billing, she would get a nice friendly reminder via email that she's crossing her data limit. And then she could call in and go, hey, what's going on? And then we could explain to her. And after the first time that happens, she would associate that running Netflix 24/7 has a cost associated.
So that fire is like a channel from Netflix.
Yes.
It's simulated.
Yes, there is YouTube also has it. It's basically a video of a fireplace that just runs on a loop.
Do an animated video.
Exactly. But that's not what they do.
Or buy a CD, a DVD.
Yes.
For the cost she's going to incur, you could actually send her a copy of the DVD and a DVD player for each of the TVs.
Well, exactly, and that's
But
Or
she's
on a
not gonna-
USB stick.
She's not going to
people
understand that.
don't associate there being a cost to using internet access.
The closest you could get to explaining that to her would be turn on every shower on hot in your house.
Yes,
And then watch one of those showers get cold.
And we're going to supply hot water for you because it's in the
Well,
best interest of
well,
humanity.
no. The better analogy is she runs those 5 showers for 24 hours and then is shocked by the bill that she gets, the water bill. She already knows if she leaves all the showers on in the house for a day, she knows she's going to get a big water bill.
The example is more to show her how she's affecting her son.
Yes.
I'm
sorry, I didn't make that connection.
I didn't explain that, but yeah, but no, and that, his example was to show her why you might want to do that. So,
I mean, it's just like right now, we have trained people to, when you leave a room, turn off the lights. You know, don't leave the sink running forever. You know, turn off the stove we're not using. I mean, we've already trained with every other utility, we've trained people to be conscious of it. Now, if you want to leave the lights, if you want to leave every light on the house, whatever, you can do that, but you're paying.
and you add on the social bit with, your city. The apartment.
I don't want to cloud the issue
Right,
because,
but I mean, but
because
that,
pound
but that,
source.
well, not, it's a finite resource in a way, but it's more yeah, that's part of it. There's a social contact to that.
Yeah.
That you don't necessarily have with the internet. Because it's a finite resource, but it's not one that's gonna go away.
The internet it's not a finite resource, but there are
Finite,
limits.
you guys are mixing the definition of the word finite. If you switch to the word scarce,
Google would argue with you that the internet is abundant. Just buy more 100K routers and you have more capacity.
Yeah, except buying a $100,000 router is not an option for an ISP my size. Just not. That's, you know, we use ubiquity routers for a reason.
yeah, I mean, I would like to be in your business, be in the sense that, you know, in a very definite way, I'm on your side. But at the moment, politically, there's some very big issues conflated with some very small issues. Unfortunately, as it is, that if you know, regular terrestrial ISPs get to do variable usage billing, then some very gigantic media companies get to do some things that over a period of decades will have effects that are kind of hard to imagine.
Like what? Because yes, it is going to hurt it with usage-based billing. It will hurt Netflix business. I don't care. I don't care if it hurts their business because
I mean,
maybe
that's a valid
because their business model is right now built on my business model being a certain way. And if I change my business model and it happens to negatively affect them, I don't care. They're not my customer. They're not paying me. My customers are home users, not Netflix.
Well, just for the sake of completeness, you know, if I'm your customer, then I'm paying you, and what I'm paying you for is to use Netflix.
No, you're paying for access to the internet, and but you're not You're not paying me for Netflix access. You're paying me for internet access.
Yeah, but on 8 o'clock on Thursday, I'm paying you for Netflix.
But if that's what you want to watch at that given time, then under usage-based billing, then you should, after some training, you'll make that association that, yes, this is going to cost a sliver of this amount. You know, watching a Netflix film at standard def may only cost 4 cents. You go, that's not a big deal. I'll pay it. Or watching Netflix at HD will cost 50 cents. So you go, is HD worth it? Probably not. So let me just watch standard def.
It is interesting to note once again that we're using a microeconomic argument on a macroeconomic issue when we cross the line from ISP to internet.
We've seen this before, Zach, with the interstate highway system. And it's the same micro versus macro thing, whereas we don't recognize the value of the larger network that we connect. For example, usage fees are the toll roads for this new system. And toll roads on our major highways have largely gone by the wayside because everybody hates it.
Yeah.
I mean, Greenville's one of the last places in the world that has a toll.
And I love the
And
toll
how many
road.
people use it?
I use it every day.
Toll roads are interesting, because I was just out of Los Angeles, and there's more toll roads. I grew up there, and several highways that I used to drive are now toll roads.
You like that?
No,
No.
I don't like it, only because, well, I don't like it because I don't pay it, but that's my decision. And it's like, I like watching HBO, I pay for HBO.
Yeah.
That's, while not usage-based, I am paying for the use of that channel. And the funny thing with that is I'm paying a lot less because they're able to spread it out across a lot of people.
If Eisenhower decided to say, let's build the interstate highway system, but let's do it with private capital, then the road between Greenville and Atlanta would be huge, and there'd be almost no roads from Atlanta to Biloxi.
Not necessarily, because
Necessarily, yeah.
there are ISPs, particularly wireless ISPs, that look for rural markets, because rural markets don't have competition. So back to your example with the toll road, if a private company goes, if there's currently no road that connects two cities, and it's not there's not a whole lot of traffic between those two cities, a private company goes, ooh, jackpot, no competition. And so they'll build that road and expend that capital and charge a toll. Now there is now a road.
No, they won't. All bridges are public investments.
In order to dig into this, you have to take the analysis to another level. I mean, there is a way to draw a level of abstraction where you can make an interesting illustration in terms of the national highways and roads in general. But to satisfy the level of abstraction that you're looking for, you have to get into the web browser or into the TCP stream and look at the content, look at what is there, and you can get into the macroeconomics of it. Long-term macroeconomics of it, the public good.
The value of everybody being connected is a lot more than the sum of the parts.
I'm not talking about, making where basically tiered service, or basically this is the Facebook tier, this is the Amazon tier, this is the video tier.
But that's what the big guys are looking
Yes, and that's the strategy they are going towards. My company won't do that. If,
As it is, that's all conflated into this one big thing.
the way my company is going to do it is we're going to keep with the status quo. Once usage-based billing will become socially acceptable, we will then start rolling that out to our residential users. Our business users, we're probably going to keep the status quo because they don't mind paying more.
I think the business users are able to discern what they're buying. So
Yeah.
I'm buying transport. I'm saying to him, hey, I need you to transport me 20 meg an hour, 20 meg a second.
To X location.
Yep. And that could be Netflix, that could be Microsoft, that could be wherever. I'm paying for that 20 meg. The home user is going, I'm paying to have this magical connection that expands infinite. And Netflix is going, I only have to pay half the delivery charges because I have to pay my peerage, and then it's up to the ISPs to figure out how to deliver the rest of it.
I've never gotten a complaint from a business that has an IT department of connection being slow. I've always gotten them from the home user.
Because that there exists a public good aspect, a macro aspect.
I'm not sure. Let me finish the thought. Is we get home users all the time, similar to that example with the mother and the fire logs. We get that ourselves. It's not that extreme, but we do get that ourselves. I've never had that with a business customer because especially if they have an IT department, they know that 20 meg connection is good for 20 megs. It's not going to do 25. Home users don't realize that.
Yeah, I mean, if you take a tight enough perspective, the usage billing, has some interesting purposes from a small perspective. But no conflagration.
Well, it's going on 8 o'clock. It's been an hour and a half, so I'm going to wrap this up.
You're not in sales, are you?
No, I'm not. I'm tech.
How did I find out this vote on phone? And how much it might be?
You got something to add on? Yeah, Matt's actually one of my coworkers, so he's going to give you a card. Give him an email.
Same company did a presentation a few months back.
Yeah, I did the presentation at Greenville Tech, and I've also done a presentation at Southeast Linux Fest.
Oh, okay. There's another gentleman did a presentation here. That was another company.
You're wireless, so your service area, you have a map.
Yes, actually I do. Today, our residential customers are mostly within Travelers Rest. Let's see.
Seemed like he broadcast from the day.
If you can see Paris Mountain, you can get service. Pretty much.
If you're a business, we got more coverage.
How did you poor people fare in usage-based billing?
It depends on what they use. If they are light users, then they will end up having a much cheaper bill. It's the same thing with the water company. The water company has a base charge. I think in this case, Greenville Water is about $10 a month. So in usage-based billing, there'd be a base charge of something like $10 a month, and then everything above that is usage. So this is actually our coverage map. This right here is Paris Mountain. This is the Daniel Building downtown. That's 385, 85 Congaree Road. This is Glassy Mountain and Pickens, and that is downtown Pickens.
Hey, appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks for putting up with that today.
I think it served to illustrate net neutrality nicely.
I wanted to present a different angle than what you probably will hear in the meeting.
But that's the business side.
Yeah.
That's the part that scares me the most. Is essentially, Netflix is putting part of its cost on every ISP.
Yeah.
And that's part. There's a great one with L3 and Verizon over Netflix, and it was literally $2,500 in parts and labor to rectify the issue. The argument was over: is Verizon going to pay it? Is L3 going to pay it? Should Netflix play it? And you just kind of you're doing that dance around. It's like it's $2,500. To your point, most of us could go, let me write you a check just to make it stop, please. But it's that, should Netflix be playing it?
I didn't catch what was the cost?
Oh, it's $2,500.
For what?
For a 10 gig fiber adapter to connect between L3's and Verizon's buildings. That was literally 20 feet away from each other. You would have resolved one of the capacity issues that Netflix traffic was causing.
And we offer residential packages up to 10
And it started this whole big hubbub with the L3
with about 9 mil
sales, sending a blog post off, going Verizon, why aren't you fixing this? Verizon going, oh no, it can't be fixed.
So we actually have that.
The L3 guy posting the map and going, if you connect this to here, we fix it. Cost.
Yep.
We'll even
We
supply
have
you the free cable
antennas on all our towers.
Great back and forth for the resident.
Yeah, it's not a special antenna for residential users.
I'll turn
You
basically had this.
What happened is there was
Literally, you're arguing about
wireless that operated out of
three
Travelers Rest.
companies
And when we
that
bought that,
that's
we
minutes
got all
on
our residential
seconds.
users. So really,
How
all
long?
our residential users
Microseconds.
come off Paris Mountain.
Yes.
Our business users are
Yeah,
spread
it's
out.
one of those things
We don't
where,
advertise to residential
you're
users.
making this traffic.
We will
Should you
connect
charge
them
the
to the general
generator
service
for
area,
which
but we're not
Netflix
going to build out or add an additional
You're
tower.
gonna pass the cost down to the ISP,
Only.
which they're
We're
going,
only gonna build towers.
hey, I can only buy as much equipment as I have customers. It's actually all these users.
Yeah, every one of the dots
So
of the
that hey,
tower,
if I want to use
we are
10 gigs a
missing,
second for my house,
one down
and I'm willing to pay the 18 grand a month to have that, I can pay that. Same with most businesses.
Yeah, but unfortunately,
Yeah.
the net neutrality issue
So only your residential.
is about big stuff.
So he's residential.
And bringing in the example of this ISP, this ISP, a small ISP, I wouldn't mind having a small ISP business
but we're not going to build a new
And
tower.
I would like that,
Serve
I very much would like that.
Oh, you will let residents.
For competitive reasons, if nothing else.
Yes, but these
So if
towers
there's a regulatory
only built
issue
after
in terms of keeping those ISPs alive, that's
Yeah.
important.
We don't do the, we'll build it, they'll come. We build it because.
Disconnection.
If I'm Charter, if I'm Verizon, I may have a $250 million
No,
budget.
right now, all of our residents.
And I may have
And we're
on staff
really well.
plus their assistants. And that's what I'm paying every year, whether they're doing anything or they're not doing anything, I'm paying for the speed. So if I go, hey,
Charter.
I'm already using it for my phone side, now I can use it for my internet side too. No big deal, I hire 20% more. I can raise the cost of the customers this much, like it's good. Zach, I gotta find one of those telecom specialists, which I may be a quarter of a million a year or $500 an hour. He can't buy a $100,000 router, now he has to buy 2.5 routers.
Well, we, our base residential
Base
coverage
that
is
cost, base going, hey guys, as
That's,
of January 1,
there's no price,
2016,
I mean, that's
We're done.
2 years guaranteed
I
price.
recommend you go with
We
the
don't do the
service
promotion pricing,
where you're a provider, I'm really sorry.
anything like that, so price we give you,
Usage-based billing.
if there is a 2-year contract.
Granted,
We don't charge any.
I could see why in DC they're looking at it that way. It's an interesting way to look at it.
Well, DC, I think is going,
Um,
more lawyers.
the resident pays a
Well,
$99 install fee.
There's that way of
which covers
characterizing
all the hardware
DC, which is
and
pretty accurate.
install.
But I was,
We
you know, a
retain
little
ownership
different
and control.
altitude and thinking more like,
And that, so
internet is important and more people should have it and it should be,
your.
availability is important. You know, that kind of,
I have never had a problem.
We've never lost.
Huh?
I've never had a problem finding.
The power.
No, I was talking about, someone who's
And we
moving.
do it, we're doing it, we have to change the.
I can go to McDonald's. I
You
can
have to
go
be
to
a lightning strike,
Starbucks.
that's a few hundred
I had
feet
to sit
away.
outside of a
There's
hotel.
enough, EM.
They're way
energy
too high.
the radio and just power supply. I wish we're going to do a
Challenging
control
and
and swap those out.
the economy.
And that's another reason why we're,
Where,
so we can't do that.
If I'm poor and I'm not paying my power bill, I will get shut off.
Yeah,
So like I said, that'd be a typical.
you know, we, as a society,
No, those,
when your
if the
power
intent
gets shut
itself
off, so
is,
we try to
will actually
postpone that and,
be marked.
you know,
Where
press
we'll
on
put
that.
in a router like that.
Yeah, but we do, don't we? We,
Order,
you know, just like as a society, it's not good for us,
say they order a block of 5
if you
IUPs.
go to the emergency
That's
room,
okay, we're gonna make the choice, and then we do OS, yeah.
you try to, you know, find ways to push all that.
And that's also a perfect example of the usage-based bill. Is a doctor isn't gonna go, give me 20 grand a year, and I can save me as much as you want. It's gonna be, I appreciate, hey, every time you come see me,
Thank you.
that's another $20. You got insurance? You don't got insurance? Hey, that's good.